In the previous video, we already discussed how to sketch the graph and find the domain for the third function. So in this video, we continue to discuss how to sketch and find domain and range for the rational or reciprocal function. So firstly, remember the reciprocal function. You have to find out where the function is undefined at x. That is, in the denominator, we have to equate with 0. So we get x equals to 5. Therefore, we can conclude that the function w is undefined at x equals to 5. And also you have to find out where the function is undefined at y. So it is very simple. Since we don't have any outside constant here, therefore we can conclude that the function is undefined at y equals to 0. And also, before we sketch the graph, remember the basic shape for the rational function. So here we have negative x, which is a less than 0. So the basic shape of our graph would be like this. So remember, this is our value where the function is undefined at x, and this one where the function is undefined at y. So that's why we have to find out this value first. So now, since we already got this value, then we can proceed to the sketching of the graph. And put a dotted line this where the function is undefined at 5. So this is 5, x equals to 5. And then y equals to 0, it is on the x-axis, so no additional line. Then we sketch the graph. So remember, this is the shape of the graph. So we sketch the graph like this and also like this. So this is how we sketch the graph for this function. And then from here we write down the domain and range. So remember, for the domain, the x is valid for all values except where the function is undefined. So since we have one point where the function is undefined, you have to split into two intervals, which is separated by the value where the function is undefined, that is 5. So the first one here, we start with from negative infinity until 5, and then the other one we start with 5 until positive infinity. The same also applies for the range. So here we have the function is undefined at y equals to 0. So we do the same thing, we are split into two intervals, and then in between it is split at undefined y is equal to 0. So the first interval we start with negative infinity until 0, and the other interval we start with 0 until positive infinity. So this is how we sketch the graph and find domain and range for this question. And look at this one. So this time we have constant outside. So remember, it will affect our range later. But first, let's check out where the function is undefined at x. So we equate to x minus 3 with 0. Then we can find out x equals to 3 over 2, right? Therefore, we can conclude that the function h is undefined at x equals to 3 over 2. And then, as I said earlier, since we have constant 1 outside, Therefore, our function is undefined at y equals to 1. So remember the basic shape for this rational function. So here we have positive x, means that a greater than 0. So the shape of the basic graph would be like this. And we already find out what the function is undefined x equals to, which is at x, and y equals to 1, which is at y. So we put together all this value into our graph. So this is our graph, right? And then x equals 3 over 2. So we show the line x equals 3 over 2 and y equals to 1 here. So remember, you have to slightly show that the value of 3 over 2 is slightly higher than 1. No need to measure using the ruler, just a little bit larger, 3 over 2 compared to 1. And then don't forget x and y axis label. Then we sketch the graph. So remember the shape of the graph, which is this one at the first quadrant and at the third quadrant, right? So this is our graph. So remember, do not touch the line into the dotted line here, because this is why the function undefined. So your graph shouldn't touch this line, right? Then we can find out after this the domain and range. So the domain, since we have undefined at 3 over 2, remember you have to split union. So 3 over 2 we put here and here. So the first one, it is from negative infinity until 3 over 2, and the other one we start with 3 over 2 until positive infinity. And the range, okay, so here we know that it's undefined at 1 at y, so this is 1, this is also 1 right here. And here we start with negative infinity and the other interval from 1 until positive infinity. So this is how we sketch the graph and find domain and range for this question. So that's all for this video. In the next part of the video, we discuss how to sketch and find domain and range for the piecewise function. Thank you.